I was a freshman at the University of Alabama studying engineering, and out of a clear blue sky, through a series of events that I'll never forget and really never understand, God clearly directed me to surrender my life to a vocational ministry in the church. I was so far away from understanding the church or what that meant, I didn't get it. You see, my pastor of my home church was a wonderful man, but church was a mild-mannered man speaking to mild-mannered people about how to be more mild-mannered. That's the church I was brought up with. But I went there and walked the aisle. They gave me a card. I didn't know much church. I filled out the card. They had no place to check what I was doing, and I just wrote, "Lord, I give you all that I am and all I'll ever be." I didn't know what that meant. Oh, a few weeks later, the pastor called and in a stained glass voice said, "Edwin, I would like you to speak in Wednesday night prayer service." So I consented. Now, my background was that anytime I gave a public report, I had to respond on my feet all the way through high school. Now I'm a freshman in college. I was ingloriously terrible. My mind went blank. My knees knocked together, but I'm afraid they'd miss and I'd break both legs. I'm telling you, I was pitiful, literally pitiful. I promise you that. But now that God had somehow directed me to give my life to the church, most unlikely person I thought on the planet for a lot of reasons. So I memorized this thing, and I had this overwhelming sermon that nobody would ever forget. Every gesture, every word, every enunciated phrase. I stood up. Big crowd there, maybe 200 people. And I began to speak. And I'd been going about, maybe 5 minutes, and blank. And so I just dropped my head and I said, there were teachers and family and et cetera. I wasn't married then, but Jo Beth was there. And I said, I don't have anything to say for God. I was trying to impress you with I don't know what. Now, I'm sorry, but I don't have a word to say. So I walked out the door, bam, got to the front of our church, and they had long steps going down. Then I started down those steps, and every step I took, I said, man, I'm out of this thing, this church stuff. Not for me. And about that time, I heard a voice, Mrs. Charles Walters, who was Jo Beth's grandmother. She was the matriarch of our church, and she thought fundamentalists were liberal. Tough as steel. She'd think General Patton was effeminate. I mean, strong. So as I started down those steps, she said, "Edwin Young, I've committed the unpardonable sin in addition to failing." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "Come here to me." I did. I didn't want lightning to strike or anything. And I went up those steps, and she looked at me and said, "I was proud of you tonight." She said, "If you're called by God, don't ever stand up and try to say anything yourself. If you don't have a word from God in his book, don't speak. You did the right thing tonight. You do that the rest of your life." Saved me for the calling that God had placed on my life. Therefore, You have heard me pray, if you've been around here, almost all the time. I just do it. I don't think about it. Lord, let me get out of the way so that thy word and thy word alone might be heard, because I've got nothing to say, which is absolutely true. You know, my opinion, your opinion, doesn't amount to too much. And so that's not just a little ritual. That's when I began to pray that prayer, and I have for a period of time. And here's the verse. I found it. Ephesians chapter 6 tells you what this is. Ephesians 6, verse 19, and pray on my behalf that utterance may be given to me in the opening of my mouth to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel. The mystery of the gospel. That's my prayer. It should be everybody's prayer who teaches or proclaims this word. With boldness, God in charge, open your mouth to communicate the magnificent mystery of the gospel.